Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Accelerate stage here at IBTM, and well done for coming to this session early. This is going to be a really, really good one, so congratulations for having the forethought and the understanding of what quality looks like. My name's Al Turner. I'm working with my colleague Adam Parry, and we've been curating the sessions here at IBTM on the Accelerate stage over the last sort of 3 days. Just to set into a bit of context what this all looks like is essentially our theme for the week has been tech for good. So tech that is for good for the event, but tech that is good for the world as well. So I want that to resonate with you as John speaks as well. But we've also tried to separate the content into sort of 3 streams on each day. So we start with day 1, which was all about now. So what's out there now? What are we seeing now? Some of the emerging things that we're seeing right now, what's helping our event organizing community. Then we looked yesterday at what's happening in the near future. So, the next year or so ahead, what are the emerging trends that we're seeing, and a lot around that, around sustainability, inclusivity, tech for good around there as well. And today we're going to have some fun, and we're going to project forward a little bit more as well into what's next. So now, near, next. So what's next? What does the future look like? And we've got some really, really great speakers. I want to underline that all of these talks are available on YouTube on demand after the conference. So please have a look at it, because you'll see some great content here today, but hopefully you'll see other pieces of content that tell this story as well in a bit more detail as well. So do have a look at that. We have some brilliant speakers ahead of us as well, so do stick around the Accelerate stage. It's been too long, John. We haven't seen each other for ages. I'm delighted to have John Martinez here from Shock Logic, who's going to give a fantastic talk. Please give him a wide and welcoming ripple of applause. John, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you all hear me properly? Yeah, cool. So just to give you a little bit of background about myself and why am I, even thought to be qualified to be talking to you about anything. Yeah, cool. So in my previous life, I was a quantum physicist. So I'm a proper nerd. So in a nerdathon, your money is safe with me. I'm a nerd that, so I have a PhD in quantum physics from a very geeky university in Boston called MIT. So I spent most of my early days studying, and I was a specialist on long-term algorithms. So, and then at my university, there was this World Congress being organized. I helped the organizers, and I fell in love with the meetings industry. And I left science, and I went on to organize events. And I spent 14 years as a PCO, professional conference organizer, organizing events all over the world. So events run on my DNA, but I also spent all these 14 years creating technology for this event management company. And then in 1997, I left. I know I look a lot younger, I know. And then started Shock Logic. So we've been going for about 25 years now. So I'm a scientist in the back, and I am an event organizer by trade, and now I'm a supplier to the events industry. So what does it have to do with neuroscience and creating effective teams? I grew up creating teams, distributed teams. And I grew up with colleagues all over the world. So I had to create early the wiring to why people connect and how to connect people and how to create teams that will remain together, although they're not sitting together. So it's a good preparation for what just happened in 2020 and 2021 when we couldn't be together. So the team at Shock Logic stays together for a long time. Hello, are you looking at me? Come in. He's a good friend of mine sitting outside, so just egging him in. And the team stays together for a long time, and we've done a lot of work and a lot of research on how to lower the churn of staff in technology, which is so precious, and in the events industry in general. So how these young people, what do we need to do in order to keep them in the industry, in our organizations, but also how do we create productive, high-performance teams, right? So The other challenge that we find ourselves is that the team is all over the place, all kind of cultures, the most diverse team I know. And then how do we do that? The events industry or meeting event organizing is considered the fifth most stressful job there is. And that I don't want to scare the young people that are here finding out if you want to be an event organizer or not. This is a fascinating industry. So how do we deal with that? How do we deal with the perils and the challenges that that we are finding in this industry? So one of the things, let's get geeky now, right? So we all have a brain, right? And we all have the same brain. We have the same model of brain. We have the same things in our brain. Our nervous system is the same. We have the same machinery, all of us, right? Some people are more, use it in different areas, in different ways. We are all intelligent in different ways, in different areas. So the brain has parts, has elements. At the front, we have what's called the frontal lobe, the neocortex. That's all thinking happens there, all facts, math, language. Everything else happens there. Everything that we find is the brain, what the brain does, happens at the front. And then we have something called the brainstem, which is 400 million years old. So our very, very, very early ancestors already had a brainstem. And that's where memory, spatial memory, et cetera, is sitting in that place. And then we have our limbic brain, is our reptilian brain. That's a brain that when we were reptiles, that was the brain that we had at that time, at that point. So and that brain does something very particular. When our brainstem, there's some seats over here also, if you guys want to stand. So the same way that our brainstem lodges our memory, spatial memory, short memory, long memory, our limbic brain, what it does, it has only 4 functions. There's a newer one, but it's fight, flight, freeze, and then a few million years later, we develop fun. Okay? So we all have this brain. We all have the same machinery. What do we do with that now? And why is the brain important? At the same time, let's keep on talking geeky here, right? We're talking science. We have these 2 systems inside of us. We have something called our sympathetic system, which is the one that keeps us alive. Remember, we're more meerkat than tiger, okay? I know that we want to think like we're lions, but we're more gazelle than cheetah, right? We're designed to be alert. That's where our sympathetic system does. We're constantly looking for danger. What's going on? I'm okay. How do I look? She looked at me weird. Oh, would he like me? This is going constantly inside of us, right? And so we're more gazelle than cheetah. Let's be aware of that. Right? So at the same time, we have something else. We have something called the parasympathetic system. The parasympathetic system is the one that calms us down. It's the one that says, I'm okay. It's the one that actually helps us with digestion. A lot of interesting stuff happens when we turn on our parasympathetic system. And we're going to look into that and how the body reacts. So remember, above the water, which means what people see of us, is only behavior and results. All right? So if I see somebody shouting at somebody else, I only see behavior and result. I don't know what happened before. I don't know what's going on under the water. Right? So all this talk about wellness, mental health, it has a real thing. Because when I'm sad, nobody knows that I'm sad, right? Because everybody sees behavior, results. Underneath the water, most things are controlled by physiology, by our bodies, by our sympathetic system, parasympathetic system, a bunch of hormones, and we're going to talk about it, and our brain, our limbic brain saying, watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. And our parasympathetic system that came later, when we started to think a bit, and it says, you're okay. You don't have to be running all the time. slow down. So our physiology, hormones, neuroreceptors create emotion, energy in motion. That's where the word emotion comes from. Creates something in our body that we give context, and it creates a feeling. The same emotion for excitement is the same emotion for anxiety. The same, right? So context turns into a feeling. Context turns into a thought. And from that thought comes behavior. And from behavior comes results. So what do we do now? When anyone between 25 and 43 is saying that when they define their lives, how anxious I am. It's almost like the word now to identify life and stress. And also, some of us, if you're not stressed, you're not busy enough, right? You're not doing the thing, right? If you're not stressed, you have no life, right? You have no friends, you have nowhere to go, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the internal dialogue. Remember the previous slide? Also, it goes thinking, feeling, emotion. We can also create emotions from our thoughts, from our internal dialogue. What we say defines a lot how we deal with life. So the most popular course in Harvard is a course called Happiness 101. And there's a guy called Tal Ben-Sahar. And Tal says that if you take difficulty and you put it into a vertical axis, and you take skill set and you put it into the horizontal axis, we tend to work our life through difficulty and ease of the things that we do, right? That sounds really interesting. That sounds really, really plausible. Now, he says that if you draw two diagonal lines, everything at the top we tend to identify as anxiety. And everything at the bottom we tend to identify as boredom, or we are impatient. And then he says that area in the middle, he identifies as flow. It's when we are at our best, when we really like what we're doing, right? If we're too comfortable, then we're bored. If we're too challenged, we're anxious. And the kind of internal dialogue that we use in order to identify those areas are, I'm overwhelmed. It's too much for me. I don't know what to do anymore, right? Or I'm not growing, right? We heard that a lot, right? What I love is that the reaction from the younger group to the older group. The older group said, yeah, I hear that from young people all the time. And says, I'm not challenged, it's too easy for me. And actually, what he also says that if we change our internal dialogue on how we identify that experience of ease or difficulty, it would be, we're learning. What if instead of overwhelmed, I'm saying, I'm gaining a new experience? And how do we do that inside of our teams? Because I think that work is the next best space in order to grow, I think. So I see work, what makes me tick is human development. That's what makes me excited. I happen to create technology for events, but I could be doing anything. I could be driving a taxi, and I would be excited about human development. So that's what makes me tick. So, and then when we are bored or impatient, I'm comfortable. I'm integrating what I just learned, right? So how do we do that? And how do we change that internal dialogue? And so we tend to live life from anxiety into boredom, from anxiety into boredom, from anxiety into boredom. And that is very hard to sustain. Because neither of them is making you happy. The course was called Happiness 101, right? It's only flow. But what if we change that and we are growing and changing, and then we are integrating and resting? Because our brain needs time to integrate. And that's why when you study something and you make a pause, there's the serious study that says that we tend to absorb learning much, much better. So for us, the leaders, I'm a founder and I'm a CEO. So this is clear for me. I need my team to take breaks. It's not that when they're taking breaks, they're doing nothing. I need them to take breaks if I want them to be effective later on. So that is a little switch there, because people from my generation, I'm 54, we watch Gordon Gekko in Wall Street, right? Dog eat dog. I just saw Elon Musk fire somebody on air. This lady said something to him. He said, well, failure is not a thing, so you're fired. And everybody goes, whoa, that's... So young people's going, yes, that's the way you have to be. You have to be tough, right? You have to smack him. And fear is our main motivator. Remember, we are more gazelle than lion. So yes, it looks like that. It looks like in short term, we could be motivating people with a stick. Now, it doesn't work with young people anymore. The stick doesn't work. They will leave you. They won't put up with it. That is a fact. And so leaders have to become more aware of that. And those that are running teams have to become aware of that. Supervisors, coordinators, managers, etc., etc. The effort is on us in order to create an environment for our teams to develop and to identify what do we need to do in order to be able to get them to produce the things that we need to produce. Because yes, there's also people watching videos, right? So what is our brain doing in the meantime? Our brain is in constant survival mode, right? Remember? Fight, flight, freeze. There's a gland, a really important gland in our limbic brain called the amygdala. The amygdala, it's only, and people define it as the stress gland. It's the stress hormone. It's one of its main jobs is to secrete a hormone, a neuroreceptor called cortisol. Cortisol is designed to impair us from thinking, to stop us from thinking. So you fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Because we started to die too quickly, because when the bush would move, because we develop a frontal lobe, we would say, oh, is that a big tiger or a small tiger? Can I overrun it? Can I? Because we started to think we're not a reptile anymore, that when you go like that, they disappear, right? So this area of our brain was developed a few million years later in order to allow us not to think so much and run. Because we're more meerkat than lion. So that is a really important gland. Remember, the amygdala, cortisol. Cortisol is going to make you dumb. How many of us have been in our car? I remember an episode when these skateboarders, I was walking with my partner, and I have a 1-year-old baby. Okay, so I look better normally, okay? So for 1 year, I've been waking up, I've been sleeping for 1 hour. So there were just skateboarders, and they came really close to her very violently. And my protective side came up. My reaction was, oh, don't you watch where you go? You see how, she's pregnant and so on, so on, so. And then I thought, and then that spike came down, and I call it the emotional hangover. And that spike came down, and I felt like an idiot. And then how many of us have said, I wasn't thinking? Yes, you weren't. You weren't supposed to. That's how the brain is designed. So we now have this machinery designed for a world where we were meerkats and gazelles, and we had to watch for the cheetah and for the predators. But now we are sitting in an office, and the reaction in your body when you feel ridiculized, criticized, challenged is the same. So our bodies are reacting the same way because we have the same brain, we have the same systems in order to react. But it's not I mean, if somebody almost hit me with their car, it's not the same thing as me being eaten by a bear or a tiger. Bears don't eat it. They beat the crap out of you and then they eat it slowly. But because I am in an office environment. I am here, right? I was very anxious when I was coming here. My body was saying, you're going to die. Watch it, you're going to die. This is a bad experience. Get off the stage. Because all we see is what's above the iceberg, above the water. So if physiology has such an important place in our bodies, what do we do? What do we do? Because that's going to create emotions, and those emotions are going to create feelings. If you give me your business cards at the end, I'll send you the slides. Nothing that I'm saying is mine, okay? Nothing. The only thing that's mine is putting it together. I'm not a specialist at this. I'm just a CEO that cares about his people. That's basically it. So, because we have this, right? Our thoughts create feelings. Those feelings create emotions. And then I feel knot in my stomach, right? Oh, I had a gut feeling. Yes, that's true. You had a gut feeling. Because emotions are linked to our physiology. Oh, you broke my heart. Of course, there's no brain here. It's all happening here. But yes, it's linked to our physiology. It's all hormones and neuroreceptors, etc., etc. And we have these hormones and neuroreceptors that we call it, well, you can define it as happy hormones, happy chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins, right? They all do different things. This is not the conversation for this. I have a whole presentation on what these do and how we generate it and how we motivate ourselves and motivate others and what happens. Dopamine is, they're really important maybe to talk about is that dopamine and serotonin. Serotonin is general, dopamine is mine. So dopamine is what happens when we get addicted to things. It's that shot. It's when you feel the zzz, and you think, oh, I have to check who sent me that message. Every like, it's of dopamine, and this is what creates addictions, and we have to watch it, but also what motivates us. So if we have all these things now, and we have all this machinery, what do we do in this world? How do we hack the system? How do we come up with strategies that will help us deal with the machinery we already got? Because you can't change it. It's the machinery you got. But remember, physiology, emotion with context. You create a feeling. With context, you create a thought. And that thought is either, what's going on with you? Or, I hope he's okay. That difference. What makes that difference? And the thing is that, and this is a complex chart, so you can take, it's online and stuff. It all defines how our flight, fight, freeze, fawn behaves, and where are these nerves inside of our body, and what do they do? How do they, so when we freeze sometimes we isolate, and that is related to other things. So there's a lot of complex stuff going on inside of us, but with the same machinery. And so we said before, right? We have this sympathetic system that is keeping us alive. It's the one that makes us alert. And we have this parasympathetic system, which what's the slowest sound and make us think. But also, there's some really interesting stuff happening inside of us when we have one system on or the other. For example, our sympathetic system will tighten our pupils. So we do that. And our parasympathetic system expands our pupils. Blood flows in a different way. Blood flows to our frontal lobe. We're able to think more. So it's not a coincidence that these things happen and you react the way you react. That's the machinery we've been given. We just haven't been trained on how to switch it on. And there are many ways, there are many schools of thoughts on how you can switch it on. And so little things that happen, for example, is that I always thought, how can the same stress that one can feel that can freeze me, is the same stress that Usain Bolt feels at the beginning of a race? What happens in the middle? How can his arteries and veins become more flexible, pump more blood, and he is absolutely ready to eat alive that track? And I'm absolutely devastated to go out. How can it be the same thing? And how do we turn that on? What happens? What's happening inside of our bodies? So our parasympathetic system is your friend. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on inside of us on how we turn on that parasympathetic system and what do we do with it. So all we have to do is breathe. God, I wish somebody told me that when I was in my 30s. That as soon as I lower my heart rate, as soon as I am able to tell my body, you're calm, and one easy indicator is breathing. There are many others. Drop your eyebrows. Just go there. Go to your eyebrows. Drop them. Let them go. Let them hang. Right? It's hard to be stressed, right, when you are not doing this. Those micro behaviors will help us turn on our parasympathetic system. Breathing. And with breathing, all need to do is breathe 5 times to be totally sure that our parasympathetic system is coming on, because if we were being chased by a cheetah or by a bear, we wouldn't be able to go, right? You would be, and that's what your sympathetic system wants. It wants short breath, because, does anybody here knows Wim Hof? Yeah, right? So Wim Hof is this crazy Dutch guy that they call him the Iceman. And he says stress is good for you in little bits. Stress is only good in 90-second bursts. 2 minutes max, 120 seconds. After that, you're a wreck. So anyone that comes close to somebody goes, why? Why have you done that? Why? Tell me why you have done that. And then you want the person to go and produce, you're sabotaging yourself. That's not going to happen. Anyways, the question why is stupid. Don't ask it anymore. If you're ever in a position of supervising, why replace it by what, how, when? Okay? Because why, the only thing I can say is that because I was an idiot, right? Nobody's going to say that. So breathing does a few things. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, as I said. It lowers your heart rate. It reduces stress, reduces inflammation. So that's why they said you need to rest. It's because every illness that's going in our body is inflammation. Increases memory and recognitions, and our brain have more bandwidth to deal with the rest of our lives. Right? So remember, physiology was the whole thing. So what we want to do is that we want to trigger something, or one of the things that we wish we can trigger is equanimity, right? Which is we want to be calm. The more calm we are, the better we will be at making decisions. And the better we will be at leading and being led. Because I'm a leader, I'm a CEO, I'm a founder, but I'm a soldier, right? My colleagues who are here in the room, they're my bosses most of the time. My job as a CEO, I work for them. And the managers work for their teams. That's the way it works. I work for the members of my team. It's my responsibility to create the environment where they will be able to do their job to the best of their ability. And then I have to be able to learn this kind of STEM. And one of the things that we do, and the reason why I brought mindfulness here is because I tend to lose a percentage of the room as soon as I mention the word mindfulness. Right? Because mindfulness is hippie, it's hocus pocusy, etc., etc. And if you're a real businessman or woman, you don't think about hocus pocusy stuff, right? Because how can you produce anything when you're doing nothing? But remember, anxiety, boredom, change, learning, integration, that is needed. So if we learn how to bring ourselves, each one of us, because if you're okay, and you're okay, and you're okay, and you're okay, we will be okay, right? So each one of us has not only the right, but the responsibility to take care of ourselves. And this is the kind of stuff that we need to know in order to know what to do with this machinery. Because, well, for whoever doesn't know what mindfulness is, but I think that's pretty straightforward. It's breathing, that's all. Mindfulness, the only thing it is breathing. It's becoming present. My feet are against the ground. Yeah, I feel my weight. I feel gravity. And it's really hard for my head to jump around when I'm thinking about my feet. You see, when I said to you guys, let your eyebrows go, it's really hard to do anything else when you are your eyebrows. When you're there and you're letting them hang, and I let my ears hang. So that is mindfulness. It's to be present on purpose. That's all it is. It's no more than that. This whole idea that I have to sit. God, that's so stressful, right? Meditating is a terrible thing. Don't think about anything. Don't think about anything. Don't think about anything. Oh, my dog was ill yesterday. Oh, don't think about anything. Don't think about anything. What am I going to wear tomorrow? My mom is coming this weekend. Oh, she's going to tell me that the house is a mess. Don't think about anything. You know, it is, all you have to do is breathe. And there's a lot of, so we breathe at my office. We do that. We do mindfulness breathing exercises. It took me 4 years to summon the courage to suggest it to my colleagues, because I was afraid about, that kind of thing. Because I might be the CEO, but I'm just a human being, right? So I'm just as prone to, oh, please love me, as anybody else. So we're talking about effectiveness, right? How do we want to be effective? So something that we follow in my company, this is one of the simplest things, man. The 7 habits. And the 7 habits are those. I'm not going to go through them. I'm only going to concentrate in one right now, which is habit number 3. Put first things first. And that's all about how do we prioritize. So we want our brain thinking so we can choose the thing that we're going to do. And by this, it says, what is the difference between effectiveness and efficiency? That's a big confusion for a lot of us. Efficiency is to do things right, to do things the quickest, with the least amount of resources, that you spend the least, etc., etc. That is efficiency. Effectiveness is to do the right things, to choose. So the choosing is what's important, not the doing. And for this, we apply Pareto's law. We try to constantly look for that 20% that's going to throw 80% of the results. And if you don't know what Pareto's law is, Google it, and there's a lot behind that you can find out. So one of my colleagues said, and that has become a staple in my office, is I prefer to do the right things wrong than the wrong things right. If you do the right things wrong, meaning that you're not as efficient, but you did the thing you had to do, at least you're adding to the process. When you don't do the right thing, it's a waste of time for everybody. All right? So choosing what we do is vital. And in order to choose, we cannot be in a state of anxiety because it doesn't work. And that's it for today, and I want to leave you with this phrase. It's one of our values. Be candid and necessary, because everyone that we come across is fighting its own battle. Thank you.